Hey there, welcome to Murder Dictionary. We are Courtney and Brianna.
Hello.
Hi guys, welcome. So before we get into our story, just a minute of a few things that you'll find in the show notes every single week. There will be links to our social media, and we highly recommend that you come follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have a lot of information there, a lot of laughs, a lot of breaking news. So definitely come follow us. We also have links to all the resources that we use for each week. So if you want to read more about the story, definitely check out those links and look into the case a little bit more. I do sometimes include links to resources as well for any sort of anti-bullying, suicide hotlines, domestic violence causes, like things like that. So we do have links to that on a lot of our episodes as well. And you will find links to our Patreon. So over on our Patreon page, we have ad-free episodes, we have bonus episodes, and a bunch of perks for our patrons. If you want to join, it's patreon.com/Murder Dictionary Podcast. And lastly, we want to thank the new people that have joined our Patreon this week. So thank you to Juan, Christina, Amy, Eek Ivy, I hope I'm saying that right, and Haley, who increased her pledge.
Thank you.
So thanks, you guys. We really appreciate you being on our Patreon, and we hope you're enjoying all your perks.
I wonder if it's Haley too. I know we're not going to get that lucky. That would be amazing.
So tonight we are on a new letter
Thank God.
Our Murder Dictionary.
I couldn't keep going with the killer kids. We all were done.
It was very poor planning on my part for a personal loss anniversary of a child in my life that happened in October. And so it was the very worst timing to do Killer Kids for me. And so there were episodes, I know we were able to cut out me crying, but it was very emotional. And I feel so silly for even thinking that we could get away with doing Killer Kids and not be completely depressed for an entire month.
Yeah, and then the same week, there's a school shooting.
Yes.
Less than, 10 miles north of us.
It's just
crazy.
Insane. Yeah, my heart has just been broken week after week, and so many stories in addition to what's going on currently. It was way heavy, and I am just so eager to move on.
So let's move on to L.
Yeah, it's time for letter L. So we, of course, because we're Murder Dictionary, we're going to do the subject of letters for letter L.
That's perfect. I didn't even put that together until you said it last episode.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's perfect.
For the letters.
It's a match.
Yeah.
So first, just to cover a little bit of why there are murders that use letters and correspondence involved in their killings. So the reason the killers write letters typically is because they want to control their public image. They want to be actively participating in basically building their brand in their own marketing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Make it like a question. Is he going to do it again? Like something different.
Keep people on their toes.
Yeah, all that.
And come up with their own names, their own monikers, their own whatever it is, that's one of the first reasons. They also write letters because they're seeking out more fame or infamy. They want to gain exposure for themselves and also more notoriety for their crimes. So let's say that there was a murder that someone committed and it's not really getting a lot of news coverage. This is another reason why murderers write letters, because they're like, well, I only saw it on the third page of the paper. In comes the letter because they want it to be on the front page. They want to be on every news channel and up the exposure.
Yeah. So they start sending them like BTK, right?
Exactly.
Send them straight to the source.
Another reason that a killer would do this is to just basically cause fear and panic within their community. Part of the thrill of inflicting harm on another person is also extending that into a larger, greater audience of people and making more people terrified to be out on the street, to be going through their daily lives. Like anything At any time, they could be attacked. They want to get off on that fear. And one of the last reasons, again, this applies to BTK, like you said, is just to show off their intellectual superiority and their ability to outsmart the police. They take great pride that they can write this letter, which basically is a connection to them, but still not get caught. It makes them feel smarter, superior, better than law enforcement.
It's always interesting to me, too, the ones that utilize the post office. And like the actual mail system to do this. I'm sure there's a little bit of like somebody else's hands are all over it and they don't even know.
Right.
Like this whole,
yeah,
right?
Like
a
other
little
people
bit more.
are touching it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, all of these reasons that the killers are doing this are based in narcissism. They're used for self-gratification. They're used that are self-serving, right? It's basically another level of selfishness, which already murdering, of course, is a part of that. My theory for this particular killer that we're going to talk about tonight is that he breaks the norms that I just listed, that I don't think he fits into any of those reasons, really. But you, Court, and you guys listening will have to let me know if you agree. So I really don't think that he had the intellectual capacity to be motivated by most of those reasons I just listed off. I think that he wrote letters either like out of boredom and needing excitement or possibly remorse, but also mostly the desire to have his sexual fetish fulfilled, right? I think that there's a little bit of all of those reasons for me. I think that he just kind of got off on writing the letters, but also hoped that he would be caught. And in the meantime, would be a little bit more excited by having something new go on. Does that make sense?
You took it out of my mouth. Gosh, I was going to say, I think it was more about exciting. It's exciting because, like, for example, if nobody's found the body, it's just out there. And just knowing that is like a sexual thing anyway. It builds, the tension builds. What if it gets found? And then like, it's not getting found. How am I going to release this sexual tension? Well, let me send him a letter. And then the excitement builds again. And then they find, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, it's this whole cycle of excitement. And again,
Plus, because he lived a very boring life.
Exactly.
It just makes sense.
And he didn't really have the capacity to make these long drawn out plans where he's writing these intellectual letters.
Right.
Not so much the BTK.
And in addition to the fact that his letters have a sexual component, which we'll also get into. So you guys will have to let us know if you agree, if he fits into the typical letter writer, or if it's more something like we just said, or if you've got another theory. But I definitely don't think that he's got the typical psychology of a letter writing killer.
I agree.
Yeah. So tonight we are going to talk about John D. Miller, who was born on July 7th, 1959 in Indiana. His parents owned Bob Miller Ford in Waterloo, where they raised John and his brother. When John was a child, there wasn't much sensitivity or awareness about mental health or intellectual disabilities, so family and friends basically just referred to him as, quote, slow.
This is like Of Mice and Men with Lenny.
Yeah, there really wasn't just any research into what was going on with him. They didn't take him to doctors, it seems like. But everybody knew that he was, you know, a little bit behind his peers. Mm-hmm. He didn't progress in class enough. Socially, he didn't really connect with a lot of people. And like I said, at the time, we just put this general category of slow on him. So that's what his family and friends always referred to him as. His mother, Patty, was always trying to basically innovate ways to improve her son's abilities. Even if they weren't getting him evaluated or getting the doctor's input, she was kind of trying to come up with these activities that would help. So they played cards, they did crossword puzzles for mental stimulation, they did arts and crafts like sewing to improve his dexterity.
It's like occupational therapy.
Yeah. And so it wasn't just something in his mind. It seems like, from all accounts, he had a little bit of an issue with physical things.
Yeah.
Using his hands, dexterity, and whatnot. So she was just trying to get his mind to be more active and get his body to be a little bit more accurate, maybe?
Yeah, it's like little tiny kids, sometimes their brain isn't connecting to their hands. And so you do little, square pegs, round holes kind of things, right?
Exactly.
And you make it work and you figure it out. I'm impressed that in 1959, in the early 60s, that mom is in tune enough even. Because a lot of times, lock them away. Sanitarium kind of shit.
That's exactly.
But
I think
I'm impressed.
They were going out of their way to innovate instead of just saying, let's make this someone else's problem or send him away. They were trying to improve what was going on with him. Yes, we know that he has these challenges, but let's find a solution. So they were always working with him, trying to improve his abilities. John also liked to watch old TV shows. His parents, Bob and Patty, divorced when John was in his teens. For some reason, custody was granted to their father, which was highly unusual. Again, we're talking about the 60s.
Yeah,
it's
this is
very strange.
Late 60s, early 70s now.
Yeah. There's got to be something there. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe because his mom was working with him so closely to help him, that maybe she got burnt out or something and just, I don't know.
Maybe.
Lacked the energy to keep going with it and needed some help. I don't know. But it does seem strange that he was sent to live with dad. We know that at that period of time, it had to be something out of the ordinary, maybe a little bit extreme, that would cause that. John's brother later speculated that the courts may have favored Bob because he had remarried. And of course, at the time, it was preferable that a child be raised in a 2-parent home.
Maybe that's it.
There was a little bit of stigma for a single parent.
Yeah.
It seems John's father did not really have the patience and dedication that Patty had with her son, since as soon as he got custody, John was sent to Saul E. Wood Youth Center right away. So he really wasn't interested, even though he was given custody, he wasn't interested in being the parent figure and raising him at home.
It's easy to get custody of someone when they're not even there.
John's brother says that there wasn't any reason or an incident that he recalls. They just basically decided to send him away. And again, I just feel like it seems like they didn't want to deal with whatever challenges he had.
Possibly for years, they've been listening to Patty say he needs extra, he needs a little more, he needs a little bit more, and like she was capable, but maybe he's like, well, she says he needs more. I can't give him what he needs. And they just send him away. Like it could be, it might not be like, oh, he's too much trouble. That he might not think he's capable of giving his son what he needs.
Right.
Speculation cloud over all this. This is Courtney just talking, but
John says that while he was away, he was molested in the youth center. But there really isn't much information available beyond what he said, since there was never a formal complaint or an inquiry or any sort of police records that this happened. Again, it's a time period where things are swept under the rug.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that there isn't a record. I don't necessarily doubt that it happened. When he left Wood Youth Center, he was sent to a boys' reform school in Muncie. His mom and brother would visit when he was in this facility, and they'd take him on outings while he was housed there.
Nice.
Yeah, at least they're still trying to be involved. And again, it doesn't really say anything about his dad visiting, but his mom was still trying to really be a part of his life and be helpful.
Oh yeah, Patty, it sounds like maybe just got like a full-time job in another town. Like it really, it's not like these stories, these cases we read about, we research. There's a reason mom has left. This one seems, she's still in the picture. Yeah. It's not like she's, she ran away with a new family, which they never do anyway. But side note.
He left the reform school at the age of 18, but his father's new wife was uncomfortable when he moved back into their home.
Ding, ding, ding. Here we go.
And there isn't a specific incident of anything that happened. There's no information on any sort of altercation or argument. But we do know that John was known to have a temper. And his stepmother, in her words, said that John scared her.
Probably did.
But again, we don't know of any incident. It's just a general feeling. And, maybe it was. She didn't know how to deal with it and she was just uncomfortable. He had a little bit of a underlying anger. And especially as the new stepmom, maybe it was more directed towards her than other people.
Yeah.
Because of his stepmom's fear, his dad, Bob, moved John into a trailer at the Grable Mobile Home Park in 1978 when John was only 19 years old. John would go on to live in this same mobile home for the next 30 plus years.
Ew. I was I don't care who you are. You live in a trailer for 30 years. It's probably not going to be in the greatest condition.
Well, the thing is there's plenty of people that I would trust to take care of one dwelling for 30 years, but John is not that person.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no.
Thinking back, my family's lived in the same house for 30 years, but it's
but the
not
siding
the same
is not the
information.
same siding as is on your family home.
Yeah. It's just,
and that's where I go. I'm like, oh man, he's got to replace that. He's going to replace this hose, this pipe. You know what I mean? Like
the amount of help that he needs to do everyday activities and the amount of help his mom's always given him. It just leads us to know deep down, whether it's stated or not, that he is not capable of maintaining a home.
This is an area where it snows.
Right.
It goes through real seasons here. A trailer for 30 years. It's like a real old, like a 1978 trailer. That thing, wear and tear. It's not
Definite.
like just a coat of paint is going to fix the eaves, right?
So we can assume that over time, this dwelling has become more and more dilapidated, dirty.
Speaks to his state too. And he's got to be isolated as hell. You know, it's all of it.
And what you surround yourself with is highly influential on your mental state.
Yeah.
So as his home is kind of, disintegrating around him.
No kidding.
He's probably having a little bit of a decline within his own mental health because of living in the same place without maintenance for so long. So that's just a side note, knowing that that's going on in the background through the next 30 years.
Right.
That's what's happening. Around the same time that he moved into this trailer, his dad also got John a job at a manufacturing plant near his new home. He worked for the Eagle Picture Company for the next 22 years. He's nothing if not consistent, right?
Routine, structure, he thrives.
Yeah.
Of course.
Although people who knew him sometimes bring up that he had a bad temper and anger issues, there again aren't many accounts of very specific incidents. In fact, he had no criminal record, only traffic violations. So it keeps coming up over and over. He's angry, but there's really no history.
I would wonder if they are road rage related traffic violations, because everything with him is, kind of explosive. It's like something happens and he gets angry, right? I would wonder what kind of traffic violations they are.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have no idea, but that could be a factor. Maybe that's one of the only ways that he did let his anger out. But otherwise, no record.
I'm thinking in Indiana, if they pull you over, and you're pretty cool with them, right? You got to flip out. 1979, and they probably know this guy in the neighborhood. They know his issues, right? I don't know. I got a flag going off, a red flag right here. But anyway, continue.
The one outburst that we do know of is that when his employer got a new card swipe system, John got so frustrated that he broke it.
I'm John. I got it. I understand him completely.
Once John was living on his own, he became quite a recluse. He still relied heavily on help from his family, but otherwise he was just alone all the time. He relied on his mom and brother to bring him groceries, newspapers, and even some pre-prepared meals for the week.
Wow.
So there was constant deliveries of like every few days, here's a casserole, some groceries, newspapers. They were just on a cycle of like, you do Tuesday, Wednesday, and I do, Friday, Saturday, so that there's always someone around.
They didn't even trust him to feed himself, but They put him in a trailer where he needs to turn on propane.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Wow.
I know. It's just, he wasn't able to do anything. He was extremely quiet. And like I said, he didn't have many friends. It was just his family. It was just the visits from his mom and brother. And again, notice his dad's not really included in that.
No.
His dad's not visiting.
No.
Are fresh fruits and vegetables a part of your day? If not, we can help. We're New Jersey SNAP Ed, and we offer budget-friendly ways to help you add nutritious fruits and vegetables to your meals and snacks. For healthy recipe ideas, visit njsnap-ed.gov today. That's njsnap-ed.gov.
We know the joy of giving is its own reward. But who says you can't get something for yourself, too? Now when you buy Vanilla Visa gift cards, you can enter to win one of over 10 prizes every week for 10 weeks, including a grand prize of $10,000 in Vanilla gift cards. So get gifting and start sharing the delight for more chances to win. Go to get-gifting.com to learn more and enter for your chance to win. Cards are issued by the Bancorp Bank, MetaBank, and Sutton Bank, members FDIC, pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc., and may be used in the U.S. everywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. Terms and conditions apply. Cards distributed and serviced by Income Financial Services Inc., which is licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services. NMLS ID number 912772.
On April 1st, 1988, which happened to be Good Friday and April Fool's Day on the same day, John was driving around and noticed an 8-year-old girl walking down the street. That 8-year-old girl was April Tinsley, who was born on March 18th, 1980. By the time she was born, her family had already endured a tragedy when April's twin brother had actually died in the womb while her mother was 6 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
My heart breaks just hearing that. And because it would have been dangerous to medically intervene while another twin was still present, her mother had to carry the baby to term and then deliver both of them, knowing that only her daughter was going to be alive.
It's horrible.
I just can't imagine. I know someone that had a similar situation, and it just breaks my heart that she went through this. And then knowing further April's story, my heart breaks for her.
This just happened to a family member of mine in October.
It's just another thing that we know is a conversation that needs to happen, where there needs to be more visibility for women who endure miscarriages, and it's becoming a bigger part of the conversation. But it's just so sad that so many women go through this. It's far more common than we realize.
Way more common. You just don't think about it, I guess, And then it's like, it's in the family and you're just like, damn, these statistics are crazy.
Very high. But then knowing that's where April came from, and this family has already endured a tragedy, it just adds a different shade to this entire story. You know what I mean? There's just another element there. April had older and younger brothers, but she was the only girl. So the Tinsley family treasured their only girl, April, and they just doted on her, which led her to be an extremely affectionate and loving little girl. Her loved ones recall how she was always hugging people. She was the kind of kid that it sounds like you introduce her and she's like, walks up and just gives this stranger a hug. You know, that's, people just keep talking about that.
Yes.
She was an adorable little blonde with a sweet demeanor. At the time, April was a first grader attending Fairfield Elementary School. She was extremely likable, with many friends and a really sweet disposition. April's family was active in her church, and April was even part of their choir. On this particular day, the kids were off from school because of Good Friday. So April was with two friends, and they were walking from one house to another to play.
Sounds adorable.
Yeah, and it was just the place where she was at was only a couple blocks from her house. So, you know, of course, they're off school. She asked her mom, can I go hang out? And then they meet up, these three little girls, and they're going to each other's house throughout the neighborhood. She was wearing blue pants with hearts on them, a turtleneck sweater, a pink jacket, and purple shoes. At one point, April realized that she had forgotten her umbrella at her friend's house. So around 3:30, she ran back to the previous house to retrieve her umbrella, while her two friends walked ahead and they agreed to just meet at the next house.
So arbitrary.
Yeah, it's something that happened probably hundreds of times before. Like, we're walking around the neighborhood, we're playing. Okay, I'm going to go get my jacket. Okay, I'm going to go get my umbrella. Something very normal.
Yeah.
And it was also really normal for her to walk around alone because, again, this was her neighborhood. It wasn't out of the ordinary for her to break off from the group, the trio that she was walking with, and go by herself. John had not seen April before abducting her. But when he noticed her walking alone, he pulled up beside her in his truck and asked her to get in. And by all accounts, from what we know, April was extremely feisty. Her mom talks about it all the time, how just she never would have gone with anyone. She would have fought. She would have kicked and screamed. And, you know, her mom is very adamant that she was a fighter,
Yes.
right? So, of course, she's not that kid that's like, I'm going to get in when someone asks me to. And when she didn't comply, John got out of his truck and he used force to pull her into his vehicle. Now, after this, the last person to see April alive was a gas station attendant where John had stopped to buy her a candy bar. So even after abducting her, he brought her in and brought her candy. That's just crazy.
It's probably what he told her to keep her calm.
Right, but the other thing is the gas station attendant recalls that she appeared to be sedated or drugged.
Yeah, he probably told her to get her candy before he knocked her out. And now you have this little girl. He's just, I mean, honestly, I figure like it's pretty simple thoughts. He still needs to just get her candy. Because anybody else would just keep going with the little girl who's clearly like messed up. You're going to not take her in public.
Exactly. It seems strange to go out of your way and bring her to a public place where there's a witness. But John, again, is just not really thinking with a very like...
Logic. Reason.
Yeah, it's not very premeditated and sharp. And like thinking about forensic and witnesses and all that sort of stuff. He is really just a crime of opportunity. You know, I mean, this is just April's here. I see her. I want her. I take her.
Yeah.
It's not anything more than that. But by the time they reach the gas station, like I said, the attendant seems to think that she had already been drugged by the time that they walked in to get the candy bar. After that, John took April back to his trailer where he raped her. Afterwards, he became terrified that she would report him to the police, so he decided to kill her. John used his hands to strangle her which he estimates took about 10 minutes. Once she was dead, he continued to violate her corpse and sodomize her.
It's crazy. It's just, I mean, she's going to tell the police, so I need to kill her. It's like, in what world is just raping her going to be okay? Like, it's just, like, if you're going to rape her, you're going to kill her. Right?
Yeah, he didn't think ahead at all. Now, once he's in this situation where one crime has already been committed, there's a panic that sets in because he had no foresight. It's the only way for him to see a way out is to get rid of her.
And then once he does that, he just continues to torture. It's like, it's never going to make sense.
No.
You know? Ever. And I want things to make sense, you know? There's no logic.
He kept her body in his trailer for a couple days, and he waited for the best time to dispose of it.
Jeez.
So when April did not arrive home for dinner on April 1st, her mother, Janet, first went to her friends' houses to find her. But her friends hadn't seen her since she left to go get her umbrella. So her mom contacted the police and reported her missing. The response from the police was swift and included 25 officers from the Fort Wayne precinct, along with 50 volunteers. A canvass of the area led to the discovery of a witness who recalls seeing a white man in his 30s forcing a small girl into a blue pickup truck.
At least I remember the color.
Yeah.
That's better than a truck.
And they had a little bit of information. A lot of times people were like, oh, I never saw anything. So they did have people right away that at least came forward and said that they had seen something suspicious. John decided to get rid of April's body. So he took her corpse about 20 miles away and he just dumped it into a ditch. No digging, no nothing, just basically threw her body out. Then he went home and watched the news, but he didn't see that the body had been found. So then he drove back to see if it was still there.
This is not typical behavior.
No, and it sounds like it happened really quickly, too.
Yes.
Like, we don't have an exact time or whatever, but it seems like from his retelling that basically I dumped April, came back to the house, and it sounds like a matter of hours. Maybe he just looked at the news that night or maybe the next morning. And then when it wasn't discovered, went back right away, which is strange. On his drive, he noticed that one of April's shoes was still in the car. So while he was driving past the dump site, he threw it out of the window towards the ditch as he drove by. On April 4th, 1988, a local jogger discovered April's body on County Road 68 in DeKalb County, just west of Spencerville, Indiana. Her body had been redressed, so her underwear and socks were inside out, and she was missing a shoe.
If you're going to redress a body, you need to put the clothes on the right way for your story, right? It's just not a mind that is clear enough to cover your tracks.
No, he had no real thought put into any of this. At any aspect of the crime, it doesn't seem like he was thinking ahead. The clothing came off inside out, so it just went back on the same way that it came off. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's that simple. He's not thinking about it, trying to cover up his tracks or make it even appear like he didn't undress her.
And the fact that her shoe is still in his car. Like, he didn't even check his car. I get out of an Uber, I tear that shit apart.
Or notice that when he was taking her out, that she was missing a shoe.
Yeah, no. This is not a savvy person.
Yeah, it's just, he really clearly was, and that's why I said at the beginning that I don't think he was smart enough to write letters for the reasons that most other killers are writing letters.
No.
Right?
Yes.
Most of the time it's some sort of intelligence level where you're trying to bring attention to yourself without bringing attention to yourself, basically. But I don't think he was smart enough to think of it that way. He wasn't smart enough at any point in the crime. It really was, in my opinion, a fetish for this type of girl at this age. He acted on it. It was opportunity. She was just there walking and she, he stumbled upon her. And that's the only reason that this happened to April. And then as soon as it happened, okay, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
And then he killed her and got rid of her. And that's just it. It's almost makes it more tragic that there was just no thought given to it, that It was just such a random act that could have happened to any girl, anyone in the community. A search of the surrounding area yielded the discovery of April's shoe, along with a sex toy that had a crank handle that was found in a plastic Sears shopping bag.
Okay, well, it's been good. I'm done now. I gotta go. We got a sex toy with a crank handle.
Unbelievable. He's a monster,
It's crazy.
He's not smart, and I keep saying that, but he's also monstrous. The thoughts he does have are definitely fucked up.
Yeah. And all I can think of is the countertop apple peeler.
I know.
That's all I can think of is
you
just
think of
that
it as
motion
an apparatus.
a tool.
Yeah.
This is not something like a toy. This is used to destroy. My God.
So the toy was later identified as, quote, Benoit Squirmy Manual Crank.
It's not good.
And not initially at the time of the crime, but later on they would actually release that information because they kind of hoped that someone who had been a former sexual partner of the killer might be able to identify it. It's not a normal pocket rocket. It's not a normal vibrator.
You would remember that.
Exactly.
100%.
It is unique and memorable enough to where if they released the information and someone saw it, they'd say, oh, wait, that was
guy.
John. I remember that night, right? So, it was one of the things that they thought could lead them to finding the killer.
Yeah.
Because it was so unique. When police canvassed the area, they found a witness who recalled seeing a blue pickup truck near the ditch. Again, it's a small town. I think a lot of people are really paying attention to what's going on. It's their community. They're protective of their community. So it seems like there's people that are keeping their eyes peeled.
You know what else is? People aren't looking down at their phones when they're driving.
Well,
no, I'm not. This sounds ridiculous, but you had to really you're much more paying attention. So yeah, you probably do notice more things than you would now.
True.
Oh my God. My head just exploded.
The autopsy report revealed that April had been sexually assaulted and then strangled. The medical examiner said that she had been dead for about 1 or 2 days, but her body had only been in the ditch for about 4 hours before it was found.
That's key from that medical examiner. Clutch evidence, buddy. Thank you.
And again, what we know now, it adds a whole new context of the fact that he literally, like we said earlier, dumped April, went home and looked at the news, and within that 4 hours, he drove by again. If she was only there 4 hours, he literally had time to just go home, see that it wasn't on the news, and then come back immediately. So within that time, the jogger came by. It was only 4 hours later.
Wow.
So, they narrowly missed each other is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably.
That's just crazy. So a further examination of the body yielded the discovery that there was semen in April's underwear. And everyone hoped that they'd be able to match the DNA profile. The whole community was shocked. They were overwhelmed with fear that the murder was still out there in their community. 2 local radio stations organized a fundraiser beginning on April 5th, 1988, the day after the body was found. And the community banded together to support the Tinsley family and assist them financially.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, there was a huge community support in this case. April's memorial service was held on April 8th, 1988, at the Faith United Methodist Church, the same one where she sang in the choir. And then she was buried at Greenlawn Memorial Park. Soon after the murder, police brought in the 2 witnesses who'd seen the truck to get more information about who they had seen. They released a composite sketch of the suspect, and they hoped that someone in the community would recognize this person. But my interpretation is it really looked like a basic generic person that you would see anywhere.
White man in his 30s. That's
right.
The description.
So unfortunately, there wasn't anything unique enough to lead someone to come forward and recognize the sketch.
Yeah.
On April 26, detectives sent DNA samples to a private lab in Germantown, Maryland, but they were unable to find a match. The initial investigation led them to a 34-year-old suspect who was already charged with child molestation in a different case. But the suspect was acquitted of those charges the following month, and his DNA didn't match the sample found on April, so he was ruled out.
Gotta love DNA. Again and again.
On April 20th, 90 volunteers from the Fort Wayne community formed a group named April, which stood for Associated Parents Regional Independence League.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty awesome. They called it April and made an acronym that worked.
Yeah, everybody was banding together, and they wanted to do it in her memory. It wasn't just a generic, let's protect our kids. It was like, this is for April. We never want something like this, what happened to her, to happen to anybody else.
Yeah.
Later, the group would change the acronym to Abduction, Prevention, Reconnaissance, and Informational League. And they attempted to basically assist police with cases involving missing children, specifically. Awesome. A couple years passed, and there were no leads, so the case went cold. On May 21st, 1990, police found a message scrawled onto the side of a barn in St. Joseph Township that read, quote, "I kill 8-year-old April M. Tinsley. Did you find the other shoe? Ha ha, I will kill again."
Very loaded note. There's a lot of information in those 2 sentences.
And like we said at the beginning, I think that this is one of the reasons I think that he wants excitement. And even though he says haha, and clearly the note, he's just a shitty asshole. But I feel like there's some sense of wanting to be caught.
Yes,
for him.
Absolutely.
This isn't a letter to a newspaper with a, well thought out name that he gives himself or an encrypted note or any sort of, further, blowing up his self-image. There's nothing like that. It's just basically, I did this.
I give you proof by saying, you find the other shoe. I don't know if they released the information. She was missing a shoe. If they didn't, this confirms this is the killer. And he knows her middle initial. So it's somebody that's like paying attention, right? Enough to know the middle initial. And just there's a lot. This is very loaded. Like I would tend, if I was a police officer and it's been like 2 years, it's been some time. This person's been waiting and they're not getting the attention they want.
Exactly.
And honestly, with this guy, it could just be like, oh, that's right. I killed that person 2 years ago. I wonder what's going on with that. Like, I mean, this is pretty simple thoughts.
Yeah, it really has to be something completely simple. So that's why for me, my mind goes to just wanting to have it come back to him so that he can just like feel like his sense of guilt is gone, you know? Or I don't know, just because he's bored and it's gone a couple years and there's no leads. The case is cold. And he's like, all I'm doing is sitting in my trailer getting casseroles brought to me by my family.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do? Well, I could just drum up more attention to this case just because I'm bored. I don't know. That's just
it sounds about
what
right.
my interpretation of his very simple thoughts are.
Sounds like a pretty good interpretation.
The appearance of the message on the barn was that it had been written multiple times over and over using darker instruments the next time. So basically this means the first layer was in pencil, and then on top of that was black crayon. And he didn't trace the message, so it wasn't the letters directly on top of each other. They didn't match up. They didn't overlap directly. So you could see that there were multiple versions of this same note on the barn.
Interesting.
Crayons were later discovered near the barn. The message was very sloppily written, and it's believed that John has something called dysgraphia, which would affect his writing. So people with dysgraphia have trouble writing legibly. They use inconsistent spacing, they have poor spatial planning, and use inconsistent letter sizes.
There's a name for this. Interesting.
Yeah. They also often spell one word many different ways and have an inability to convey their thoughts through writing or a difficulty writing what they're thinking.
Interesting.
So, yeah, they deduced from this letter that there was something going on, like especially seeing the tracing on top of each other, that it wasn't traced. And there were different ways that he's writing each letter. They weren't spaced out. It wasn't necessarily a particularly eloquent letter. They knew that there was something going on with his writing abilities.
Yes.
At first, detectives thought that the message was connected to the murder of 7-year-old Sarah Jean Boker, whose body was found in Fort Wayne less than a month after the note was discovered, on June 14th, 1990. But that connection was ruled out a short time later. So again, it's just like they keep having these little leads or a little bit of hope, but it keeps going cold. There's no connection to DNA. There's no information coming forward where they have a suspect. It's just one of those cases that's so tragic that there's no answers.
Yeah.
And the years just keep going by.
And I bet, you look at this scrawling on the barn and it tells you about the person. So yeah, you are able to start like the profile on the guy. And especially when you're in a cold case. Now we're just like profiling at this point, right? So yeah, when you look at it and you're like, this isn't written like a person would write with crayon. It's just a whole nother like level. They are working this case.
Yeah.
Like the police are trying anything they get. I mean, they're just interviewing randoms and making up sketches and, dysgraphia. They're working it. There's just nothing to work with.
Exactly. And there is so often that there's this perception that when cases go cold, we want to like point the finger. Like people that are web sleuths or podcasters are just like, well, the police didn't do enough and blah, blah, blah. And this is one of those cases where there is no possibility of saying that. Every report you hear is about how the police were constantly following up. They were always pulling out all of the old case files and working on it. It never really went uninvestigated. They were constantly working on it. The detectives will always tell you like, yep, every once in a while we bring it out, we re-interview, we look at these angles, we get the FBI involved. They were trying new things. It's just that they couldn't connect it to anybody.
Yeah.
But they were really trying their best. A task force was formed in April 1991 to investigate the murders of April Tinsley and Sarah Jean Bowker. Local police enlisted the help of the FBI, and on August 7th, 1991, the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit concluded that although the two cases were similar, they were actually not connected.
That scares me. Like, as a person living in Fort Wayne, that scares me more. I want them to be connected. I want this to be one person that we can just take out and just be done with. I don't want this to be multiple child molesters, child predators on the streets of a small town in the 80s.
And that's the other thing, is the community was so rocked by this. And then it happened a second time with a second person.
Not good.
Yeah, you hear that over and over, that the detectives were consistently working on it and the community was consistently keeping the focus and attention on April.
Yeah.
Over and over, you hear that it's like annually they would have events for April. As the years go by, they keep, her memory alive, and that it's deeply ingrained in the community of looking for April's killer and trying to find justice and trying to protect their own children, because it could have happened to anyone in Fort Wayne. They viewed it as it could have been my child. So yeah, there was a lot of energy put into this, but nothing was coming out of it. So many years passed and the case went cold again.
We know the joy of giving is its own reward. But who says you can't get something for yourself, too? Now when you buy Vanilla Visa gift cards, you can enter to win one of over 10 prizes every week for 10 weeks, including a grand prize of $10,000 in vanilla gift cards. So get gifting and start sharing the delight for more chances to win. Go to get-gifting.com to learn more and enter for your chance to win. Cards are issued by the Bancorp Bank, MetaBank, and Sutton Bank, members FDIC, pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc., and may be used in the U.S. everywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. Terms and conditions apply. Cards distributed and serviced by Incom Financial Services Inc., which is licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services. NMLS ID number 912772.
Time to put up the tree.
Nothing goes by faster than the holidays.
Time for family photos. Time to cut the turkey. Time to take down the tree.
Actually, the Lexus December to Remember sales event also goes by fast, featuring extraordinary offers on our most popular models.
Lease the 2020 RX 350 all-wheel drive for $419 a month for 27 months with $34.99 to its signing. Experience amazing at your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lexus dealer. Call 1-800-USA-LEXUS for important lease offer and pricing details. Not all customers will qualify. Offer valid in the Lexus Eastern area only and ends December 2nd, 2019.
During this time, John's family continued to assist him with all of his daily tasks. And in the year 2000, he was fired from his manufacturing plant job that I said earlier he had for 22 years.
Yeah.
When he was fired, he did not tell his family that he had lost his job. And they only found out when they arrived for one of their many visits to find that the utilities were off at his trailer. And this comes back to what you said. I mean, he is really not capable of maintaining his dwelling.
That's what
I
was just going to say, is they trust him to drive a vehicle around. He has a pickup truck that he drives around. He cannot function.
No, he really has a lot of challenges.
And they just left him there and oh man, it's so hard because maybe they didn't have the space to bring him, take care of whatever, basically over time, this is what worked. And everyone was able to continue living their lives, and they got him over here and he seems to be doing well until he's not, right? But he doesn't have the wherewithal to say hey, I lost my job. I'm going to need help with this. No, he's just living in a trailer in Snowtown. All I can ever think of, because I live in LA, is oh my God, it gets cold there.
Yeah.
I mean, how is he going to stay warm? Obviously, he's not.
No, and just when something like this happens, his first instinct is to just ignore it, not to fix it, and not to contact his family, who's clearly helping him with everything. So it's just very strange. So after losing his previous job, he got a job at Walmart. Again, his coworkers recall that he had a temper, and everyone complained that he cussed a lot.
Now, these are Walmart employees saying that this guy has a temper and cusses a lot. I believe this. I believe this 100%.
And the amount of people that work there, too, there's a lot of people interacting with him on a daily basis. So for the general consensus to be that he's angry and he's always cussing, and I can envision this in my head of just him like trying to stock a shelf or getting even mildly frustrated and just having an outburst. Everything is the end of the world to him, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So once all these complaints started rolling in, he was moved to working overnights in the electronics department, which his brother said was a good fit because then he didn't have to actually deal with customers and deal with a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
There was also an incident at Walmart where apparently he wet himself while working and then just continued to work like nothing had happened.
I'm telling you right now, I pee myself at work. 1, I know it. 2, I'm going to be leaving and taking care of this. There's something going on here.
Did he know that it had actually happened? I'm assuming yes. And I'm assuming he just didn't care.
And
but
I
this
don't give
to
a
me,
fuck, right?
Yeah, like I know that you're coming at it from a certain angle. The thing that comes up for me is that it's the same thing as not telling anybody that your utilities or that you're that you've lost your job. It's the same thing as letting your utilities go off and not really doing anything about it.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's just this general complacency and, in my opinion, overwhelm at dealing with things. Like it's too scary and overwhelming for him to go and talk to his boss and say, I got to go home, right? That's what I think is happening. Even though that may be a simple task for you or I to say like, oh my goodness, I'm having tummy problems. I have to go home. Oh, got a call from my kid's school. I got to go home. For him, that's not normal. He doesn't know how to just break his routine. He's got to continue moving forward like everything's the same as every other day.
Got it.
That's my theory.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, is there something, because he's getting older too. Is there something physically here where he's like peeing himself at work and nobody notices? But I think I'm being kind.
Yeah, I think that my head is going to the emotional aspect of it, the psychology of how this happens and him behaving in this way. So because he had done nothing and he was trying to continue to work, his boss had to intervene and sent him home that day. The years continued to pass until Memorial Day weekend in 2004, when John left 4 notes around the Fort Wayne community. 3 notes were placed on various little girls' bicycles, and 1 note was left in a mailbox.
Weird.
The notes were put in plastic bags along with used condoms and Polaroid pictures of a man from his waist down.
He has definitely stepped it up.
Yes.
He's had time to sit and think and like being isolated, all of this. This is a lot.
And again, this right here is exactly why my inclination is to say that he didn't write letters for the purpose of getting notoriety or building his brand and naming himself.
Not like Zodiac.
It was specifically part of his sexual fetish. It was letters, yes, but it's also condoms and Polaroids. This is a sexual element for him, which makes him extremely unique because we don't see that in BTK. We don't see that in Zodiac. This for him is part of his fetish, right? So it's a way for him to flash and have exposure and be a voyeur and still write letters, keep interest alive in the case. Again, coming back to possible boredom, but in this like I said, I mentioned remorse before. This one is definitely has no remorse element to it, you know? It's just, to me, I think, a sexual thing.
I agree. You're so smart.
No.
You're just so smart.
Nah. The pictures showed a circumcised man with hairy legs and a teal paisley bedding behind him.
He works at Walmart. This is 2004. I know exactly which teal paisley bedding that is. And so do you. If you just think about it in your head for a second, it's got a brown and an ivory tone to it, and every single person we know. Really?
I highly disagree with you on this because...
Tell me why.
My inclination is to say that this is Paisley from the fucking 70s when he moved into this damn trailer. It's not 2004 Paisley. This is 1978 Paisley. Or like 1988 Paisley that his mom handed down to him when she got new bedding. So some of the photos show him touching his penis or masturbating.
Oh.
But in every picture, he's nude from the waist down.
Mm-hmm.
One of the notes read, quote, "Hi, honey, I've been watching you. I am the same person that kidnapped and rape and kill April Tinsley. You are my next victim. If you don't report this to police, and if I don't see this in the paper tomorrow or on the local news, I will blow up your house." And to point out, I wasn't saying that weird. He used the word an instead of and.
Yes.
Throughout the entire time. Again, when we were talking about dysgraphia, in one letter, he could spell the word and properly. In another, he could spell it wrong. He's known to spell April's name wrong as well.
Interesting.
So he's using multiple spellings for the same words. It's a symptom of dysgraphia.
Wow.
The DNA taken from the condoms on the letters matched the DNA profile of the semen left on April Tinsley 16 years earlier.
Man, if I was that lab technician who got those results back, like there's the cold chill. Like Golden State Killer kind of too, you know, like when he would come back periodically and like you think everything, oh, you get this false sense of security and then bam, he's back and it's the same motherfucker. You almost feel better if it'd be copycat, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh my God, it's the same person. He hasn't stopped and he is still out there.
Yeah, the fact that the same person is still in your community, terrorizing Fort Wayne, making everyone feel unsafe, like their daughters are at risk. And then targeting these young girls by just leaving these disgusting things on their bicycles, you know, that means he's still a threat and he's still there. So again, after testing, although they matched it to April Tinsley, they couldn't match the DNA to anyone in their database. So despite the fact that they knew it was connected to the 16-year-old case, the killer was left out on the street, just striking fear into the Fort Wayne community yet again. On June 24th, 2005, the Tinsley family held a press conference on the steps of the Allen County Courthouse. They requested that people come forward with any information that could assist in solving the case. In June 2009, police reached out to the FBI again to see if their Child Abduction Response Development Team, aka CARD, task force, could help them work on the case. Again, they're just really trying to grasp for ways to solve this. It's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of reaching out to other authorities to help out. They're trying everything they can.
And what's so frustrating is you know that this person is a match. When you find this person, it's open and shut. But they obviously are smart enough to not be in a database. Or they're stupid enough, right? It's one or the other. It's like, it's so ridiculous because this person is obviously going to be like in their 50s, 60s. They've led this same life. So they're probably not going to deviate. So at this point, unless they really fuck up, you're screwed. You are not going to find this person.
Yeah.
Because they've gone this long. They know how to do this. Or they're that lucky.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it's like it was only one crime, too.
Yeah.
So to come forward with the notes and the semen and everything and connect yourself to the case again, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're not continuing to kill people, but there is, I guess there's got to be an element of wanting to keep the notoriety there because you keep coming forward.
And then the first thing you
notes.
say when you come forward years later, you know, after another, I'm going to come forward again is, if I don't see this in the paper, you know.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah.
true. So I guess, yeah, I maybe was attaching it to a sexual fetish more than it should be. There has to be an element of him wanting the notoriety.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I shouldn't minimize that because that was definitely an aspect. But it is unique to me that he had such a sexual fetish for writing the letters.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So when the FBI became involved in the case again, the unit provided assistance by categorizing the killer as a, quote, preferential child sex offender. By their definition, this meant that, quote, he has a long-term and persistent sexual desire for children. The FBI gave the police a full profile of what this killer would be like. So we're going to go through some of the details of that profile.
Let's.
The profile described the murderer as a white male who would then be in his mid-40s, most likely not married, who lived in the community of Fort Wayne or Allen County, and was working class with a low to medium income. The BAU also said that the killer would have a preference for prepubescent girls ages 5 to 10, so he would probably hang out in areas where there would be groups of children, especially young girls. He might also have a collection of dolls or toys that he thought young girls would be interested in.
Interesting. That's sorry, but that's like, because it's like when you see an adult man at a park in the playground area. All the moms just kind of like, what's up with that guy? You know that guy? You know what I mean? Wow. Whoa.
Or if you
I just got scared.
If you see a certain mid-40s man in a toy store frequently, if you work at a toy store in Fort Wayne, this is your opportunity to say, who's the guy that's always buying Cabbage Patch dolls?
And this is let's make this clear. This is pre-Marvel pop toy things. This is not, you know, like this isn't like now when you can see an adult man by himself at Toys R Us buying a shit ton of Avengers toys. And this is just totally acceptable.
Yes, it was
Different time.
seemingly, in my opinion, more out of the ordinary for a man to collect toys.
I agree. That's
At
why
this
I'm just
time.
like, wow, this is
But especially
fucking crazy.
girl-specific toys.
Yes.
The profile also, this is basically pre-brony as well.
Yes, yes, there you are. Pre-brony.
The profile also pointed out that he would probably be able to interact normally in most social situations most of the time. But he may have a tendency to say inappropriate things or make people uncomfortable with his comments about young girls. They also pointed out that he may be predisposed to voyeurism, like flashing or showing people general obscene images. So it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, it's so hard because this is a profile, and looking back when you know who it is, you're like, yeah, this matches every which way.
Totally.
Right? But when you just release the profile, it's hard for people to know, oh yeah, that's my cousin. That's my coworker, you know? But I think all of us can think of some people where it's like, oh yeah, this person says inappropriate things.
Do you remember like the dude, quote unquote, in the beginning of the internet, right? That would say to you, hey, you want to see pictures of dead people on the internet? Like rotten.com, right? I know plenty of people who were like totally into this. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yeah, I feel like
and
we
like the
come in-
guy you work with who gets pissed at the time clock that cusses, like that's me. I'm the guy you work with. But like, do you know what I mean? Like there's certain things where it's like, shit, you know, I mean, it's very specific, but it's until
also
you know,
just general enough
yes,
for someone to fly under the radar.
Totally.
You're perfectly right. I mean, these are specific traits. However, we all know a few people like this.
Yep.
You know, like I know people that keep toys in their original boxes, and it's not abnormal to me. I think that's awesome. I love your collection. You know, I'm not so happy about you punching the time clock.
Sure.
I'm not so happy about you showing me porn at a random party, you know?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. Like,
But I mean, these things happen. It's not like they're just within the realm of possibility where we know we come in contact with them, but they're also fitting John D. Miller to a T. It's just that someone has to put that together. Someone has to say, that's my coworker at Walmart. I know that guy.
yeah.
You know? But again, this comes back to the fact the cops have never stopped working this case.
Never.
And that's important to point out. They never gave up. They kept trying new things. They kept bringing in the FBI and seeking out more information. So now it's just like, we have this profile. Let's release this information. Let's get this profile out there so that people can come forward and have the opportunity to say, I know this person, you know? So everybody that's seen someone punch a time clock can say, yeah, I know this guy, you know? But they're just doing what they can. And this was, 20 years later, they're still looking.
I hate to say this. I have moments where I just stand there at work and I'm just like, oh, you're going to give me the wheel? You're going to give me the processing spin? Like, I'm just going to pick this up and just flip like Teresa, just a full table flip. Like on a regular basis. I feel this way. Just the veins, the blood is right. And like, I'm not currently a suspect. That's for sure. But yeah, you could be like, hey, you might want to talk to her.
Right.
I mean,
that's the thing. It's just a matter of someone putting all these things together.
yes.
It's a lot of these are not necessarily normal, but behavior that we see, and so someone's got to hear that profile and say, I know that person. So in April 2009, they released all this information on America's Most Wanted, and the whole April Tinsley case was featured on the show. And they appealed to the public to come forward with tips. This is all the information we have about him. This is the profile. Here's what happened. Please tell us if you know anything. And when the episode aired, some tips came in, but none of them turned up any viable leads. In 2009, one of the lead detectives, Dan Camp, retired. And he said that one of the major factors in his decision to leave the force was the overwhelming disappointment of not being able to solve the April Tinsley case.
That's so terrible.
It just completely devastated him.
Just such an unfinished business.
Yeah. Dan said that the case had become an obsession, and the stress of trying to solve it was all consuming for him. He had worked the case tirelessly, but he ended up retiring after keeping April's picture in his wallet for over 20 years.
Wow.
It was so personal to him. It just, and again, it's something that I mention on many episodes. We think about the person that lost their life. We think about the family of the victim, but we also just see so many others that are connected to this loss that have a deep sense of grief and trauma. And so many people in the Fort Wayne community were affected by this, not just the officers that were working and the detectives that worked on the case for 20 years, but there's so many people that suffer when one human being decides to take the life of another human being. And this is one story of Dan Camp, who just it broke his heart and he had to move on after 20 years. After Dan left, the case went cold yet again for years. Meanwhile, John was still going about his life, working overnights at Walmart in Kendallville and remaining a member of the community where he committed this horrific crime.
It's wild.
His neighbor, Dawn Muller, said that she regularly saw him returning home in his Walmart vest, and he was always scowling.
I fucking hate this place, man. One of these days I'm gonna burn this shit down. Like going into his trailer all pissed off, yelling at stuff.
Yeah, he seemed like a miserable fuck.
Yeah, for real.
His trailer was near a baseball field and a bus stop.
Oh, good. Sorry, just...
So kids were always walking by, headed to the bus stop, and he sometimes went to the fields to watch softball games.
I don't like this at all.
People saw him. He was out. He was with kids around kids.
Just like the profile said he would be.
Exactly. After other family members passed away, his brother took over, coming by frequently to bring him his groceries and meals and make sure the trailer didn't need repairs. And I guess at this point, it's probably worth pointing out, I have referred to John's brother multiple times now and never used his name. And this is on purpose. His brother has given interviews. His brother has talked about the case, but he has chosen to remain anonymous. And there may be people out there that know his name, but I want to respect his wishes.
No, he's just brother.
Right.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
when I say John's brother, he only has one.
Got
it's
it.
the same person every time, but I do not want to disclose his name.
No.
Cool?
Yeah.
His brother does recall that John had a lot of adult videos, but he said that he didn't judge him and he believed that the movies, quote, kept him safe. I'm assuming the extension would be it keeps women safe.
Meaning they know.
Exactly.
Meaning they know something is not right.
The brother has to have some sort of feeling that he doesn't know how to respect women.
Over the years, the brother has been watching this whole thing go on and watching his brother and watching his family like sacrifice. I mean, watching mom, too, like sacrifice their whole life just to bring this guy casseroles and all this shit in a trailer for 30 years in the same trailer. Like, and it's just all porn. Like there's more to it. And probably due to disability also, they didn't necessarily want to be like putting it out there. You know,
maybe.
The judgment of it all too on top of this. Just like, I hate to say this, but it's like Beauty and the Beast and just keep him in the West Wing.
Yeah, I think that they just wanted to get from day to day. It was just about like surviving.
Yeah.
It's like, let's bring him his meals, keep him employed, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily feel like his brother felt that it was as bad as it actually was. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I hope
it's
not.
one thing for him to think, I don't see him having a lot of girlfriends. I think it's safer for him to watch porn than maybe, try to meet a girl in a bar and get disappointed and rage out on her or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that deep down, he probably just thought it was that.
I agree.
And there is some information from his brother that looking back in hindsight, he's like, I should have put it together.
Yeah.
But at the time, he didn't.
Of course.
We know the joy of giving is its own reward. But who says you can't get something for yourself, too? Now when you buy Vanilla Visa gift cards, you can enter to win one of over 10 prizes every week for 10 weeks, including a grand prize of $10,000 in vanilla gift cards. So get gifting and start sharing the delight for more chances to win. Go to get-gifting.com to learn more and enter for your chance to win. Cards are issued by the Bancorp Bank, MetaBank, and Sutton Bank, members FDIC, pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc., and may be used in the U.S. everywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. Terms and conditions apply. Cards distributed and serviced by Income Financial Services Inc., which is licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services. NMLS ID number 912772.
Time to put up the tree.
Nothing goes by faster than the holidays.
Time for family photos. Time to cut the turkey. Time to take down the tree.
Actually, the Lexus December to Remember sales event also goes by fast, featuring extraordinary offers on our most popular models.
Lease the 2020 RX 350 all-wheel drive for $419 a month for 27 months with $34.99 to its signing. Experience amazing at your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lexus dealer. Call 1-800-USA-LEXUS for important lease offer and pricing details. Not all customers will qualify. Offer valid in the Lexus Eastern area only and ends December 2nd, 2019.
In 2014, when John turned 55, he received a large sum of money, but it actually disappeared very quickly. And his brother believed that John might have spent all this money on sex workers.
Maybe.
That was his theory.
Maybe.
He decided to question John about where the money went, but he never received a clear answer. John was always evasive. Another thing is, his brother also thought it was extremely odd that John had bought a brand new Chevy Malibu, and within 3 years, it had over 70,000 miles on it.
That's insane. Because like a typical lease, correct me if I'm wrong, is 10 years, 100,000 miles, right? So they assume you're going to put about 10,000 a year on your car. That's normal.
Right.
3 years, 70,000 miles? That's like you're doing cross-country road trips regular. I mean, you're trying to put miles on your car, or you're just not thinking clearly and aimlessly driving the country. I mean,
it's very odd. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Are you spelling your name in with the, like, are you drawing a map at home? I'm going to write my name.
Crop circles.
Today I'm doing a crop circle, right? Like,
yeah, there's something completely missing here. We have no idea. And again, he wasn't committing other crimes that we know of. His DNA has not been connected to out-of-state cases. So it's not a matter of driving across country and committing another murder, but something happened that would make him want to do this much driving. It doesn't make any sense. It's completely unexplainable.
What is he doing?
I mean, so the thing to think about is the Walmart that he worked at was not far from his home.
No.
And it was literally the only place he was going. Now you think about, he's only going to Walmart and home. It's the only time he should be using his car.
And he works nights.
Because his brother was doing all of his errands, bringing him all of his food.
Yeah.
He doesn't even need to go to the grocery store. So how is it even possible to have 70,000 miles on your car in 3 years?
And quite frankly, you bring the women back to the trailer you're comfortable in, right? You're not renting a hotel room in some casino and bringing them with you there and gambling and drinking. This is not the guy. It's not him.
No, that doesn't fit his personality or anything.
Picking up a sex worker in general doesn't even really go in line with this guy, even with sexual weird shit going on.
No, it is not within his profile to want to be with adult women.
Yeah, no.
So it's just something to point out that's very odd. And we still to this day have no explanation for why he had been driving so much.
This is also, it's like a Josh Powell driving all over the place and cold, and they still have no idea where the hell he went, and Susan's still missing. These are the things like, this will keep me up at night. I want to see the GPS tracker and know where the hell he went.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a true mystery. We have no idea. In June 2015, there was a Virginia-based lab that took his DNA and used it to put together a composite sketch of what his physical characteristics would be based on his DNA. So using his DNA markers, they were able to predict some of his physical characteristics, like his hair color, eye color, height, stuff like this. And they released that information with a current sketch that was updated and gave it to the public in May 2016. Again, nothing happened from this. It was just one more thing that they were trying. Again, not letting the case go without being worked.
Yeah.
But again, it went cold for another couple years. In May 2018, the detectives sent the DNA sample to a forensic company named Parabon Nanolabs. And the scientists at Parabon ran the profile through a genealogy database, hoping to get a hit on a relative who had at least a partial match to his DNA markers. So they ran it through and compared it to things like Ancestry and 23andMe, right?
Man, people are just getting the surprises of their lives with these DNA ancestry kits.
They're like, I just wanted to know about my great grandma, and now they're going to jail.
My
Thank
immigrant
God,
story.
though. Right. Like, I mean, it's amazing what is happening and the kind of technological strides that we're making. I'm really excited for the future. These kind of stories make me so excited to see what we are capable of going forward. Because again, we're looking at 30 years later. April died in 1988. It's 2018 when this happened. So 30 years later, there's no other way to solve this case until we get these websites like Ancestry. And that's so exciting and hopeful to me. This gives me so much hope for what we can do in the future.
So many people. So much hope.
On July 2nd, 2018, a genealogist named Cece Moore narrowed down the list of suspects to 2 brothers from the Miller family in Graybill, Indiana.
Surprise, surprise.
So they brought in John's brother to the station first and questioned him for a few hours. And I'm not sure if maybe his brother also fit somewhat of the profile. I'm not exactly sure, but they chose to bring him in first. Or the other thing, they could just be ruling him out, seeing what he knew. We don't know. But once they were talking to him for a while and they were satisfied with his answers, they let him go. And they turned their attention to John. Once they had ruled out his brother and concluded that John really had to be the killer based on the DNA, they figured the first task should be to secure a DNA sample so that they could match it to the condoms with the Polaroids and the DNA taken from April Tinsley. Since discarded items are perfectly legal to use to collect DNA, the police went through John's trash to find items that they could compare to the DNA collected from April's body. They collected multiple items from his garbage, but ended up doing the testing using 3 used condoms.
He's got an awful lot of used condoms around.
So many. You know, when you walk in CVS and you're just walking through the pharmacy and you see the condom aisle and you see that box of like 100 Trojans, that's John D.
That's
Miller
this guy.
buying these.
Who's
right?
buying those?
You always wonder who is going through all, like, is this only for swingers parties? I think about these things all the time of just like, there are liter-sized bottles of lube.
There
you know
really
what I
are.
mean?
Yeah,
these
there
things
really are.
exist, and John D. Miller is the reason.
You can buy it with a handle on the gallon.
Oh, yeah.
You could buy a 5-gallon bucket with a paint bucket. You could really get down. And you worked at Walmart where you can buy in bulk.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it's
like a comforter.
So strange that he's got so many condoms all the time are involved in his crimes. And I know this is so weird, but like, are condoms part of his fetish?
Maybe.
Is there something about it?
Maybe
that
they
is
just like
exciting
drilled
to him?
safe sex into him, like, and that's what stuck. Like, that's the thing he remembered.
Maybe. But there's something there.
Yeah, it's weird.
There's got to be something behind this. And we don't have the information, so you can only speculate, but it's interesting. But one thing that really stands out to me is that there's no condom found in relation to April Tinsley.
You're right.
But everything else involves condoms. So, I don't know. There's got to be something here to explore, but
Muy
let's move
interesante.
on.
Very interesting.
So, as we know is going to happen, the DNA that was collected from the trash ended up being a match to the DNA collected from the crime scene 30 years earlier.
Oh my God, I've been waiting for hours for you to say that.
I know. We're so far in and
God,
it's finally happening.
He's just been forever. It's so crazy.
And the whole time, the Fort Wayne community is just in terror.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Officers showed up at John Miller's trailer on July 15th, 2018, and they asked him to come to the station so they could talk. After reading his Miranda rights, detectives asked if John knew why they wanted to talk to him. He simply responded, April Tinsley.
Ugh.
He knew right away.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of time and he was just waiting. Further questioning led to a confession that he had abducted, raped, and murdered April Tinsley before desecrating her corpse and then dumping her body in a ditch. He was just forthcoming right away during the interrogation.
I'm sure he wanted to tell someone for 30 years. He's been wanting to tell him.
Exactly. John said that he only killed April because he was afraid that she would report him. Again, it just doesn't matter,
No.
but that's what he's trying to say. He also detailed how he drove back to the dump site and threw the second shoe out his car window. When the news came out, the community was shocked that he had been living among them the whole time. And he lived so close to those areas where children were often playing and hanging out. After the arrest, John's brother said that what he did was sick and unforgivable, and he hasn't been able to eat or sleep since he found out what his brother did.
I bet.
It's got to be, again, like I said, so traumatizing for everyone around them.
Yeah.
On October 26, 2018, the Indiana State Police honored 3 Fort Wayne investigators for their work in solving the case. John D. Miller was charged with murder, child molestation, and confinement. And initially, he entered a plea of not guilty at a July 19th hearing, which first hearing that doesn't make sense because they have DNA and a confession. But from what I understand, it may have just been kind of a decision based by his defense team, like we have to enter something. So the initial plea of not guilty, just as like a protocol. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's got to be.
It's simple. It wasn't really done with any consulting from him. April Tinsley's mother, Janet, requested that the prosecution seek the death penalty. Defense attorneys Anthony Churchward and Mark Toma requested that the trial not have jurors from the same county as the crimes were committed, since, of course, public outrage and the hostility towards John was just so intense. Judge John Serbeck agreed that the jurors should be selected from another county and brought in to sit on the trial. Before the trial could get underway, John changed his mind about the not guilty plea. And again, like I said, I think that once his defense attorneys talked to them and they came up with a plan, they decided it would be best to have a plea deal.
It makes sense.
On December 7th, 2018, after discussion with the Tinsley family, both sides agreed to a plea deal. The Tinsleys said that they were actually relieved because it would have been a weight off their shoulders to not have to go through the trial.
Can you imagine too?
Yeah, have all that stuff drug up again.
And this was just last December, okay? So that means this trial would just be getting underway now kind of thing. And this would be long and drawn out. I mean, they would be open and shut, but it would be traumatic as fuck. They'd have to review pictures, all these things. He's going to get up there. He's going to be an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, there's the crazy stuff. It's for the best.
Absolutely. There's a lot of pain and heartache to avoid by not going through that process. April's family attended the sentencing hearing wearing blue t-shirts with photographs of April and her name, and underneath it, the words, "Never Forgotten." John was brought into the courtroom in a wheelchair, and he answered a few questions in a very shaky, low voice, but otherwise, he really remains silent and stoic through the whole hearing process. He confirmed that he understood his rights and that he can't appeal after the sentence is handed down. And then he answered no when asked if he suffers from a mental illness. Family members were given the opportunity to address John directly before sentencing. April's cousin, Christina Snyder, addressed the court calling John a cold-hearted monster before telling him to burn in hell. April's mom, Janet, also spoke, saying that she remembers it like it was yesterday, even though it had been 30 years since he ripped her family apart. She told John that she would never forgive him until the day she dies.
The day he dies or she dies? Because I would never forgive him even after I'm dead.
Yeah, I know. I think a little both,
Yeah.
all of the above.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. There's no forgiveness there.
No.
Janet also said he would be sentenced to far less than he deserved. And since he took April's life, she wished she could take his.
That's truth.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why she would feel that way. Absolutely. John read a brief prepared statement from a paper saying, quote, "On April 1st, 1988, I abducted April Tinsley. After abducting her, I had sexual intercourse with her. I strangled her with my hands, killing her." His defense attorney added that John is sorry to the Tinsley family as well as the community, and that he can't do anything to make up for what is lost, and that he wished it never happened.
Not good. Not good enough.
No, nothing's enough.
Not a good enough answer,
There's
buddy.
nothing you can say.
No.
He was sentenced to 80 years in prison, 50 years for murder, and 30 years for child molestation. He was sent to Indiana Department of Corrections Reception Diagnostic Center in Plainfield. On January 16th, 2019, he was moved to the Newcastle Correctional Facility. And like I said before, his brother gave interviews with a couple media outlets after the conviction. But like I said, he requested that his name never be used in the media. He explained that he was shocked when he first learned that his brother was the killer. But once he saw the handwriting from the letters, he knew it was John. That's got to be just a crazy feeling to see that and connect it instantly.
And not to have known at the time.
And the kind of hindsight that
Yes.
you have of what you could have done to bring him to justice earlier.
My hands in the air. The guilt. The guilt that you will carry in your little backpack of issues that we all carry around, right? Put guilt in his.
It's so
I can't
sad.
even imagine. I feel guilty every day for everything all the time. This is like otherworldly guilt.
His brother said that after he found out what his brother did, as far as he was concerned, John was dead to him.
Yeah, I bet.
A memorial called April's Garden was built in the Hoagland-Masterson neighborhood of Fort Wayne. On July 28, 2018, community members organized a memorial walk to honor April that started at the garden. And from what I understand, they do things almost annually. The community and local news, and from what I hear, it's like people are constantly trying to keep her memory alive. April's mother, Janet, also put together a balloon launch at April's garden on April 4th, 2018, which was exactly 30 years after she had been found.
Wow.
The next day, a bench and pink magnolia tree were formally dedicated to April at her former school, Fairfield Elementary.
It's crazy. This is all 30 years later. I wonder if any of those teachers that were her teachers were still there. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Or that maybe people that were students with April
for sure they came back,
became teachers.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know?
Small town. I didn't think of that. Yeah, you're right.
The unveiling was followed by a dedication ceremony and candlelight vigil. In May 2019, the National Association of Police Organizations, NAPO, gave awards to 9 investigators who had worked for 30 years to ensure John's arrest and conviction. April's younger brother, who's now in his mid-30s, still lives with his mom since she explains it's just so terrifying to not have your kids around after losing 2 children.
That's terrible.
But I'm glad that she has her son.
Oh,
that,
of
like,
course.
He sticks around and he's like, I'm not going to leave you, Mom. You
No,
know,
for sure.
I think that that's sweet that he's recognized that they have a special connection and he's sticking around to be that rock for her.
It's not like they live together because he isn't getting a job and he won't go to school. You know what I mean?
No.
He is probably a contributing member of the family and they just live like roommates. And maybe it's like a Colty and Debbie situation, but like for the best.
No, I think to me, it just says a sense of security
Yeah.
and calm and feeling like you don't have to worry all the time of what's going to
Totally.
happen, you know?
For sure.
So that is the story of April Tinsley and John D. Miller, our first letter murder for letter L.
Yeah.
Yeah, this story is just deeply disturbing.
I'm so glad that this one was solved.
It really was so recent. And
Oh my God,
for
it's tripping me
30
out.
years, they're fighting to really get answers. And it's amazing that this finally happened. Again, it's one of those things that even though this is so tragic and unbelievable and so many people that were directly related to the case or just in the community were affected, we're finally at a place that's hopeful where we can solve these cases that are
Yes.
30 years old. How amazing is this? What a time that we live in where this is happening.
Yeah.
Where John D. Miller can just fly under the radar until we have this technology. It's here. The moment has come to where we can bring these people out of the fucking shadows and hold them accountable for these horrific things. So it's crazy how recent this was. It's crazy how long the case was open
Yeah.
for and not solved and just a cold case.
And if you've
But-
never heard of this, if you look at her picture, you will immediately go, oh, I've seen that case on Friends, one of these episodes, because it's such a long time. If you're into true crime, you're familiar. You just may not realize, oh my God, this is that case still ongoing. Because there's so many we hear, they never get solved. It's just a cold case and we see it on an episode and we put it in our brain and it goes out. This one got resolved. It's pretty cool. And that Cece Moore chick, she's closing cases left and right. That was her name I recognized immediately. She's been involved in so many, all these DNA cases. She's the one that does it.
Yeah. I always want to focus on the hope of it. And I think it's just incredible that there's people like Cece Moore out there. There's
Yeah.
people like, the lab that is testing and comparing, I think it's amazing. And I'm really excited to see how we can hold people accountable in the future and solve crimes faster going forward. I think that this is really awesome. So anyway, that is the very first letter L case. And we will be back next week with another murderer that wrote letters.
The letter L for long.
And I think that most of the other ones that we discuss are going to fit way more in line with the typical psychology of writing letters. The needing fame and notoriety, striking fear into people, needing to feel smarter and superior to law enforcement. I don't necessarily think that fully applies to this one. It's more sexual fetish than a lot of other factors, but I think that we're going to see a lot more in the coming weeks that just really deeply apply to the psychology of why killers use letters. So with all that said, make sure you check out the links in our show notes if you want to read more about the case. Again, it was so ongoing for so long. There's a lot of information out there. So if you want to check those out and read a little bit more, check out the links and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and get information about breaking news, what we're going to cover next, new episodes, and all that. If you haven't left us a review or left us 5 stars, we would always appreciate that. It goes a long way for us, and it really makes us feel great that you guys love the show. We love to hear about that. And lastly, if you're not on our Patreon and you want ad-free episodes and bonus episodes and stuff, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Murder Dictionary Podcast. And the new people that are on our Patreon that we want to thank are Juan, Christina, Amy, Eek Ivy, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation if I'm fucking it up, and then Haley, who increased her pledge.
Thank you.
So thanks, you guys. We really appreciate you being on our Patreon, and hopefully we will see you next week for another letter
Very
case.
soon.
Anything from you, Court?
No, they're just long letters every time. They're just long. The letter L for long episodes.
Honestly, the
True.
cases that we're already diving into seems like all of these episodes are going to be particularly long episodes.
Yep.
So
Lucky you.
strap in. It's going to be a lot from us over the
Hooray.
next few episodes. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. We all have songs that remind us of our first love and bands that make us think of a certain friend. Maybe you have a workout playlist or a favorite album to listen to on road trips. But do you ever wonder what was going on in the lives of the artist when they wrote the music that you connect to your own memories? Rockumentary Podcast fills in the blanks on what you may not know about the iconic artists making the music that's so meaningful to our own lives. Each episode is an in-depth biography spanning from a musician's childhood through all the challenges of their journey to success and how they handled finally achieving fame. On Rockumentary, you'll hear about Kurt Cobain becoming a janitor at the same high school that he dropped out of, or how Jimi Hendrix was kidnapped and held for ransom for 2 days. Our episodes include details about Notorious B.I.G. marrying Faith Evans after knowing her for only a week, and Phil Spector pulling a gun on the Ramones when they tried to end a long recording session. You may know the music, but on Rockumentary, you'll hear the stories behind the songs. Search for Rockumentary on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you like to listen to podcasts.
We know the joy of giving is its own reward. But who says you can't get something for yourself, too? Now when you buy Vanilla Visa gift cards, you can enter to win one of over 10 prizes every week for 10 weeks, including a grand prize of $10,000 in Vanilla gift cards. So get gifting and start sharing the delight for more chances to win. Go to get-gifting.com to learn more and enter for your chance to win. Cards are issued by the Bancorp Bank, MetaBank, and Sutton Bank, members FDIC, pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc., and may be used in the U.S. everywhere Visa debit cards are accepted. Terms and conditions apply. Cards distributed and serviced by Income Financial Services Inc., which is licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services. NMLS ID number 912772.
Nothing flies by faster than the holidays. Actually, the Lexus December to Remember sales event also goes by fast, featuring extraordinary offers on our most popular models.
Lease the 2019 UX 250 Hybrid for $319 a month for 36 months with $39.99 due at signing. Experience amazing at your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Lexus dealer. Call 1-800-USA-LEXUS for important lease offer and pricing details. Not all customers will qualify. Offer valid in the Lexus Eastern area only and ends December 2nd, 2019.